Now that Hidden Inventory is finished and we are waiting for the Shibuya incident to officially begin this week, I wanted to give a more informed and detailed prediction for a chapter to episode conversion that I think Mappa will be adapting for this next arc. I've already done a quick estimation for this back in another video, so if you want to check that out or any other JJK content, then make sure to check out the playlist on my channel. But enough of that, let's get into it. Obviously, major manga spoilers for the Shibuya Incident Arc to follow. With the prelude to Shibuya beginning in the form of the Evening Festival mini-arc, and us knowing that this season is going to be 23 episodes, we know that Shibuya is going to be adapted over 17 more episodes, and seeing how Mappa decided to adapt the past arc, we not only have an episode total, but also a rough idea of how many chapters they're going to be adapting per episode, how much anime original content they're going to throw in to maybe extend those runtimes. So with all that said, let's get into it. Definitely take this with a grain of salt, I could end up being completely wrong, but we have a decent amount of information, enough to make guesses, predictions, and it's always fun to do videos like this. Also, since Mappa hasn't been the most creative with their episode names this season so far, I also thought it'd be fun to try and come up with some ourselves, as well as pulling from the manga volume names and a few chapter names. I'll talk a little bit about the title of each episode that I've come up with and the chapters that it's going to cover. Not going to go too much into detail as to the content of those chapters. If you've read the arc, you know that already, and there's loads of other videos out there going through the whole arc in detail, explaining all the events, so I feel like that's not really necessary here. Starting off, we have episode 7, which we already know is going to be called Evening Festival after the mini arc, and I reckon this is probably going to adapt from chapter 80 to halfway through chapter 83, beginning with Mekamaru just having fired 1 year charge of his ultimate cannon, going through the Mekamaru versus Mahito fight, and ending with Gojo entering the curtain into Shibuya. We fade to black and we see Satoru Gojo arrives. I think the fight will probably take up a large portion of this episode, but we've definitely got room at the end for a little, sort of setup to Shibuya. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some anime original content in here. A lot of, establishing shots of Shibuya, building up the tension more with the civilians chanting Gojo's name, and Gojo arriving on the scene. Continuing with episode 8, which is going to be our first original title, we're going to call it Arrival, referring to Gojo arriving in Shibuya, obviously, as well as Yuji at the end of the episode learning of Mahito's arrival in Shibuya. This is going to cover the second half of chapter 83 through chapter 85. We're going to start off with the crowd in basement 1. And we will end off with that revelation to Yuji that Mahito is in fact here in Shibuya. Episode 9, Intellect, which is referring to the whole situation with the Grasshopper Curse, as well as Meimei's intricate plan and the Disaster Curse's strategy for dealing with Gojo. And that's going to be covering chapters 86 to 88. We're going to start off with Meimei sharing her vision of the crows, them scouting around Shibuya. I would imagine they'll extend this scene a little bit. We'll get quite a few shots of the crows flying around, looking at all areas of Shibuya. And we will end off with the transfigured humans arriving on the train with Mahito. Episode 10, very simply going to be titled 0.2, referring to Gojo's insane 0.2 second domain expansion. This is going to cover chapters 89 to 91. We're going to start with Mahito versus Gojo just after he jumps off the train, and we will go through Gojo's ceiling, and we will end with the I have faith in everyone panel from Gojo referring to Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara specifically. Also, just a little comment here, I would imagine we might get more detail as to what it's like inside the prison realm, because in the manga there's the very famous panel of Gojo sitting there among the skulls and the bones. I wouldn't be surprised if that's extended a little bit, so we get to see more of his environment, more of just what it is like inside the prison realm. Episode 11, we're going to call Rescue in reference to the We Will Save Gojo Satoru panel and just the general effort that everyone is going to be combining together to try and save Gojo from the prison realm. This is going to be chapters 92 to 95. We'll start with the other teams entering Shibuya, entering the fight, and we will end off with Toji's resurrection at the hands of Granny Ogami. Episode 12 is called Overwhelmed. Now, there's quite a lot that's going to happen in this episode. This is probably the one which I'm least confident on with my predictions. This is going to be chapters 96 to 99, and we've got the title referring to Awasaki's technique, Yuji and Megami's victory over him, as well as Toji's very quick victory versus Ino, and also Gojo's birth. Speaking of, we will start out the episode with the classic Satoru Gojo bursts onto the scene, title card, and seeing baby Gojo, and we will end with Nanami showing up to Haruta versus Nobara's fight. We will start off episode 13 entitled Siblings, referring to Yuji and Choso as well as Meimei and Wiwi, with that very fight between Nanami and Haruta. This is going to cover chapters 100 to 102. And we will end with the quote from Kenjaku, "Not bad for a Jujutsu sorcerer of this era as he is about to face down Meimei." Episode 14, entitled A Battle of Blood. We've got the dual meaning, obviously, Choso using blood manipulation, as well as Yuji and Choso actually being brothers. I've tried to incorporate, a fair amount of foreshadowing in these titles, especially since this is a spoiler video, so there won't be any risk of anime-onlys getting spoiled by these. This is going to cover chapters 103 to halfway through chapter 106. We are going to start off with Choso versus Yuji's fight, with Choso using piercing blood. We will go through that, and we will end up with Nanako and Mimiko finding Yuji unconscious in the bathroom. Episode 15 is called Unexpected Allies. This is in reference to Toji arriving and assisting in the battle versus Dagon, as well as Megami's intervention in that very same battle, as well as just the general idea that Maki and now Bito are fighting side by side. This is going to be the second half of chapter 106 to chapter 109. We'll start off with Team Nanami just before they encounter Dagon, and we will end with Toji entering in the fight with the classic narration referring to his overwhelming intensity. Episode 16 will be called Awake, referring to Toji regaining his consciousness just in time before he ended up killing Megami, and also Sukuna waking up and beginning his rampage across Shibuya. This is going to cover chapters 110 to 113. We're going to start with Toji in his own Honored One pose, entering the Dagon fight, and we will end with him stabbing himself in the head right in front of Megami after recognizing that he took the Fushiguro name instead of Zenin. Episode 17 is going to be the Sukuna versus Jogo fight entitled Fire and Flame. We are going to go from chapters 114 to halfway through 117. We'll start with Megami with Toji's body as his face changes back and he questions who he was. And we will end with the summoning of 8-handled sword divergent sealer divine general Maharaga. God damn, I love Gege's naming system sometimes. Episode 18 is going to be called Trump Card, referring to, obviously, Maharaga. We're going to go through the second half of chapter 117 up to chapter 120. We will actually start, this is a little bit out of order, with the Gojo and Megami flashback, where he tells him about the Six Eyes, Limitless, and Ten Shadows users that fought each other in the past. We will end just after Nanami's death at the hands of Mahito, with Yuji arriving on the scene and screaming at him, "What the hell are you, Mahito?" Episode 19, this one kind of hurt to name, but it is going to be called You've Got It From Here. If you know, you know. This is going to be chapters 121 to 124. This is going to be the start of the Mahito versus Yuji fight, and then we will end with Mahito touching Nobara and using Idol Transfiguration. Episode 20 is actually going to be named after one of the chapters. This is one of the few chapters in Shibuya that does have a specific name, instead of just the Shibuya Incident Part whatever. And that's going to be about that girl. This is going to be chapters 125 to 127. We're going to start off with that Nobara flashback, and we will end with Yuji and Todo preparing to fight Mahito after Todo has sort of rekindled Yuji's spirits. Episode 21 is going to be called 120%. This is obviously in reference to all three fighters bringing out 120% of their potential. Chapters 128 to 30, we're going to start off with the Miwa scene on the train, her saying goodbye to Mekamaru, and we will end with Mahito summoning his instant spirit body of distorted killing and asking Yuji to wish him a happy birthday. Episode 22 is going to be called Truth. This is going to be referring to Mahito's true form, as well as Yuji admitting to Mahito that he is like him, and he is just a cog in the system there to kill curses. This is going to be chapters 131 to 133. We'll obviously start off with Yuji fighting Mahito in his final form, and we will end off with Kenjaku absorbing Mahito, and the quote, "Let us discuss the world to come." Episode 23, our season finale, is going to be entitled Golden Age. This is in reference to Kenjaku's quote about the Heian era, the world of Heian, the golden age of curse techniques. This is going to be chapters 134 to 137. We're going to start with Kenjaku explaining the idea of a maximum technique. We will end with that quote from Kenjaku. We will cut to our ending, and then we'll have a little scene in our post-credits, which is going to be chapter 137. We will end off with Yuta Akotsu's return to the series and his declaration that he will kill Yuji Itadori himself. Now, this definitely isn't going to end up being perfect, but I really enjoyed making this video, especially the episode names. I hope that Mappa does the route of making their own names instead of just using the Shibuya Incident Part 1, 2, 3, etc. I don't know, it just feels it adds that much more unique touch to the anime, especially compared to the manga. I think with manga it works just having those parts listed like that, and it's very easy to tell, you know, where the arc begins and ends. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we do just get the parts for the titles for the anime. But yeah, this is probably one of my favorite videos I've ever worked on. It felt creative, I enjoyed doing it. I hope you guys like it as well. If you've got any suggestions for episode names, theories, predictions, what they're gonna do with the season, anything like that, please leave it down in the comments below. I read them all, and I'd love to see what you guys think. If you enjoyed this, make sure to check out the rest of my JJK content and the rest of my videos. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it, and I will see you in a blur.